I'm in contact with a lot of people, and one of the things I've been thinking about is how to help them more. So today I want to talk to you about one of the things that I see has become problematic, if you will, in especially among my young friends. I work with a lot of young people, I hang out with a lot of young people, and the biggest thing I see is such a huge concern to make sure that I'm on the right path, to make sure that I don't make any mistakes, to make sure that I obtain the destiny that I've had. Some of that comes from being young and just wanting to do the things that are right, chasing after the Lord. I think that's one of the issues sometimes. We say we're chasing after the Lord, but what does that really mean when the Lord dwells within us? And so I want to say something this morning that I hope will take off some of the pressure. You don't have to chase after God the way you think you have to chase after God. And you need to always keep in mind that the Lord Himself has a destiny. And because Jesus has a destiny, you have a destiny. And for Jesus to fulfill His destiny, you are part of that destiny. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go out and pursue your destiny. Yes, it does mean that you have to make the steps of walking in the righteousness that's already been paid for you, or not. You can choose not to walk in that. You can just go, hey, I'm saved, and that's all that matters, and nothing's going to take that away from me, and I personally believe that. But at the end of the day, you sit there and you're reminded of things you could have done better. And some of that's the accuser, some of that's old tapes that run. I think we're going to have to change that. I think it's going to have to be old chips that run, because tapes are so passé in the way we talk about things. We want to move ahead, and I've spoken, as I said, to a lot of young people in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I've become a little bit concerned because I feel like I'm saying the same thing to each person. So hopefully this will help you. There was a commercial that came on TV a few years ago, and it was for Nestea, and what it always showed was the person popping open the container of Nestea and falling back into the water that would mysteriously and magically appeared behind them. I think that if I had something that I've learned that I would like to pass on, it's that there is a rest of God, that the hardest we have to work is to enter into His rest. The other day I read about Jubilee, and I was like, wow, people think that's so cool, but every day for a believer is Jubilee. Every day we've been set free because of something that's been done in the past. Every day we have the opportunity to embrace and grab onto something. But as we look to the destiny that the Lord's laid before us, I think that when we strive to accomplish something, we become so focused on the accomplishment, we forget who was the one who set it before us in the first place. This isn't just about returning to our first love or any of that, though that's part and parcel of that. But more importantly, it's recognizing that there has been a rest that's already been paid for. That as believers, we don't wait for the Sabbath, we live in the Sabbath. That we enter into His rest. And because of that, there is an ease of grace that comes about in our life. We know that grace is unmerited, undeserved favor. We know that grace is a person. We recognize the power of grace just to help us to overcome those objects and issues of our life. But most importantly, grace is something we get to live in. And when we recognize that being in His rest allows us to enter into that grace, much of the stuff that we battle against falls off to the side. There's nothing worse for me to get focused on something, particularly if it has to do with programming or something that I'm working on. I go down that path only to get to the end of it and go, this isn't going to do what I want it to do. And I think the Lord wants us to take an analogy like that and say, hey, when we're in the rest, there is an ease of grace that appears about us that we get to observe. Even today, it's a beautiful day, it's an unusual day. We just barely came into spring here in Vermont, and we've had 80-degree days. And there's something amazing about that we just look at and go, this is so neat. And I think God wants to be like that in our life. He wants to be that beauty, that ease, that grace to help us to do that. So back to the commercial, I think that what I'm suggesting is that we need to somehow drink of His goodness. We are His portion, it tells us, and He is our portion. We need to drink of His goodness and engage in what He has for us. And in the process, we get to lean back into the arms of His loving Son, Jesus. We get to lean back into Him. And there is a rest. There is a comfort. There is a letting go of things when we enter into that rest. So if you've been feeling driven, I'm just going to say to you, consider that there is a rest that when we're being driven, we don't get to enter into. And we may miss out on the very thing that God wants us to have. And we also certainly miss out upon the peace that usually accompanies, not usually, but always accompanies His grace. And seldom when we're stressing out about something do we feel that kind of peace. We feel that, yeah, this is where God wants me to go. But I'm telling you that there's something about this, that there's a nesty plunge that is waiting for you to just lean back into His arms of love and to engage in Him and let Him work through you and about you. Thanks, and God bless.